Trikonasana on the left, you'll pivot back to the right, square the hips to the back of the mat. And so again here, heels are in a line. Now the back foot is at a 45-degree angle. If it goes too much open to 90 degrees, then it's hard for the hips to shift forward. So back foot at a 45, hips square to the back of the mat. Padottanasana, of course, in the feet. Both legs are straight with a micro bend in the knees. Hands on the hips, inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, hinge forward, keep the spine long. Right when you feel like the spine wants to bend, lower the left hand to the outside of the right foot, raise the right arm up. Good. So what you're looking for here is the hips are nice and square. There's a nice straight line from the tailbone to the crown of the head without too much rounding in the spine. So there's a tiny bit here. Just come up a tiny bit on your, maybe like here, and place the outside of your hand. Yeah, perfect. And now you can see that fixed the rounding in the spine. So if you want to do an adjustment here, be very careful because this is a very unstable pose. Here's what the adjustment looks like. So you put your hip into their hip, you're holding their opposite hip, and you're just lengthening here. So you're sliding the right hip back, the front hip back, and then I'm going to make sure that she's stable, and then release. Inhale, rise, and pivot to the left. So now squaring the hips to the front of the mat. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hinge forward. Right hand comes to the outside of the left foot. Left arm reaches up. And again, we're looking for a nice straight spine here and keeping this front hip tucked back. So I'm just going to sort of guide her hip. I'm not doing a real strong adjustment here, but just guiding so that she knows to help square her hips. And then slowly releasing. Inhale, rise up. And exhale to Samasthiti. Great. So from here, moving into side angle, Parsvakonasana. Inhale, step the right foot back. You're going to set up for warrior two here. So the heels can be aligned. The feet are at 90-degree angles. And the first modification is to take the front elbow to the front thigh. No weight on the elbow here. Top arm is up overhead, palm facing down. Be sure that this shoulder is rotating downward. Bring the ribs in. Good. So you're looking for a nice straight line from fingertips all the way down to the ankle. And then the next modification would be to bring that right hand to a block on the outside of the right foot or all the way down to the floor. Again, you're checking this alignment here. So if there's a bend in the hip, then that means that your student needs to widen their feet apart from each other. The adjustment here is you're taking your hip, your side hip to their front hip. Your hand comes to the outside of their back hip, and then the right hand in this case is reaching for the inside of the thigh. Be careful not to put the hand on the knee, but just below the knee. So I'm going to lower my body, which is rotating her front hip, and then I'm using my back hand to open her back hip. So my front hand is keeping her knee guided over her ankle, my back hand is opening her hip, and my side hip is rotating her hip, her front hip. And slowly release. Inhale, rise, and exhale, pivot left. You can go ahead into the full extension. And same thing with the adjustment here. So I'm going to check that her shoulder is rotated forward. And I'm going to take my hand to stabilize. My right hip is going into the front of her left hip. And my front hand is opening up that knee, keeping it over the ankle. My back hand is opening up that back hip. And I am squatting down to externally rotate her front leg. And Inhale, rise up. Exhale, revolve side angle. Parivrtta, Parsvakonasana. So now we'll start by coming to a high lunge. So go ahead and square the hips to the back of the mat and come up on the ball of the back foot. So there's a couple of different variations here depending on where your student is. Let's start with the most basic variation. So go ahead and come down onto your back knee. Take your left hand on the inside of the right foot and the right arm reaches up for a nice twist here. So the toe can stay tucked or you can come to the top of the foot, and you want to make sure that the front foot is far enough away from the back foot so that the hips can come forward and you have again this nice straight line now from the crown of the head down to the back knee. So you may scoot your front foot forward just a tiny bit. Perfect. Okay, so this is variation number 1. Inhale, rise to a low lunge. And take your hands to prayer. Another option is to take your left elbow to the outside of your right knee and do prayer twist with a low lunge. Here now, she can also tuck that back foot and come into a high lunge prayer twist, or the twist here with a high lunge. Either variation is fine. From here then, the next option is to lower that left hand to the outside of the right foot. And the right arm reaches forward. Good. And again, the shoulders rotating down. So here we have revolved side angle, straight line from the fingertips all the way to the back foot. Then eventually, this heel will come down. But notice that when Carolina tries to bring her heel down, go ahead and lower it down, her hips start to open and she loses the integrity of the pose. So usually I'll keep my students in a high lunge on the ball of their back foot. Great. And you'll have your students stay in whatever modification feels good for them as usual. So inhale, rise up. And exhale, we'll pivot to the other side. So go ahead and find each variation just to have balance here. So Carolina will model each variation. So these two, the hand down, left arm reaching up. This can be done on the knee or with the toe tucked, knee raised, either way. And same with prayer twist. So she'll come up, come to prayer, and twist left. So when you're coming into prayer twist, you may have to sort of work that shoulder to the outside of the knee. And then from prayer twist, the next modification is to lower the right hand and reach the left arm forward. Great. And you'll see this beautiful line from the fingertips all the way to that back heel. When you're ready, you can inhale, rise up. And exhale, Samasthiti. Great. Okay. Prasarita, Padottanasana, or wide leg forward fold. So she'll inhale, step the right foot back. Turn the balls of the feet in slightly. Now, depending on the hamstring flexibility, if the hamstrings are very flexible, then you'll shorten the distance between the feet. And if you're still working with opening the hamstrings and or hips and low back, you'll just widen the stance a bit. So for A, you'll take hands to hips. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Keep the spine straight, hands come to the mat. Inhale, lengthen. And exhale, fold all the way forward. Now, the goal is to bring the fingertips in line with the toes and then gently press the mat forward to bring the head towards the mat. However, if you're noticing a lot of rounding in the spine, then of course your student can use a block and stay with the spine nice and straight. You want to find where they get the even distribution of stretch between their hamstring, hips, and low back. The adjustment for this pose is similar to the forward fold. So First option, take yourself into a warrior one stance. Your hand comes to the back of their thigh, just below the bum. And then your other hand is coming to between the shoulder blades. Fingertips are pointing down. So my back hand is stabilizing her, just so that when I do lengthen her spine, she doesn't topple over. And I'm pressing down. So in the way that would lengthen her spine and pull the vertebra away from each other. Okay. So I'll show you a different adjustment in a later modification. So inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, hands to hips. Inhale, rise up. So B, then you keep your hands on the hips. Inhale, lengthen, and exhale, fold all the way down. Okay, the adjustment here, you'll thread your hands between their elbows. So you're going to position yourself in a squat. And you may need to take your feet kind of wide here. Thread the hands between the elbows. I'm taking my hands to right in between her shoulder blades. And as I'm doing this adjustment, I'm squatting down and bringing my elbows towards each other and rotating my hands outward. So my hands are going to press and lengthen her spine. So again, here's the motion, threading through, squatting, and opening here with my hands. Inhale, rise up. Do you mind doing that on this mat so we can get a different angle?
Yeah.
Your hamstrings are going to feel lovely after this.
Say one?
Yes. Okay, so here's a different angle on Prasarita Padottanasana B. So I'm squatting, wide squat. Okay, my balls and my feet are out. I'm threading my hands through her elbows. Notice that my spine is straight. Right now my fingertips are pointing towards each other. But as I start to bring her elbows together with my forearms, I'm rotating my fingers outward and pressing down on her spine to lengthen her spine. Inhale, rise up. Okay, stay on this mat for C. So for C, you'll clasp your hands behind the back. Inhale, lengthen the spine, and exhale, fold forward. So for this one, some teachers will actually press the hands. I recommend not doing that just because people can have shoulder issues. So what we want to do is a PNF stretch here. So I'm going to take myself into warrior one. My front calf is blocking her shin to make sure that she doesn't topple over. I'm placing my hand on her sacrum, fingertips pointing towards the side, and my other hand is coming to her hand. I'm going to ask her to push into my hand as strong as she can and take a couple of breaths. So she's resisting, and I'm just stabilizing. I'm not pushing real hard with my hand. And then with an exhale, go ahead and release. And you'll see she gets a little bit more space here. And again, I'm not pushing, I'm just sort of guiding her hand forward. Inhale, slowly rise up. And finally, for D, hands on the hips, inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, hinge. Taking the first two fingers around the big toe, inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bring the head towards the mat. You want to check and make sure that the elbows are straight up and the wrists are straight as well. And she's pulling so that her head can come closer to the mat. So again, the adjustment can be the same as we did for A, taking the hand to the back and pressing down from the shoulder blades. And the other adjustment that I was going to show you is more advanced. So you want someone who has a lot of flexibility like this. You're going to take your hands to, again, to just below the bum. Your knees come in between the shoulder blades. And so this is just going to give a bit of a deeper stretch. So I'm on my toes and I'm pressing her spine down. Okay. Slowly release. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, hands to hips. Inhale, rise. And exhale, Samasthiti. So for that last adjustment on D, I recommend actually doing that on A. I felt safe doing it with Carolina because she's an advanced practitioner. But that is a deeper adjustment and it can feel a bit unsteady, especially if you've never done it before as the teacher. So what it looks like is this. So I'm on my toes, my knees are together, and I'm pressing into the shoulder blades, and I'm stabilizing here. And so my knees are doing this motion to lower, to lengthen her spine. So again, that's just better done in A rather than D.